Greetings, everybody. Welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back with the mini-series that we're running for this week. This is day 3 of Prog Legends, Yes, and Genesis. And we have chosen the topic today is the change of singers. So out the door for both bands go the leading frontman singer, big time guys. Peter Gabriel and John Anderson are out of the band, and in comes 2 new guys taking over the lead vocals. One of them not so new, but definitely different, and both of them are different but similar and at the same time. So the 2 albums I've chosen for this should be obvious to most people. Trick of the Tail from Genesis and Drama from Yes. So this album came out in 76, a few years after. I think Peter Gabriel left in 74, and this album came out in 76. With Yes, John Anderson left the band along with Rick Wakeman actually in 78, and was replaced by Trevor Horn on vocals here on the Drama album. So yeah, really some similarities between these albums quite a bit, but at the same time very different sounding, very different bands, very different sounding, but both very progressive. So generally speaking, I think the Trick of the Tail did reasonably well commercially, but it wasn't really a commercial album. It's the same with the Yes one. Did reasonably well, people bought it, but it didn't do big numbers. The Genesis album, I think, was accepted a little bit better by Genesis fans because the music pretty much stayed the same, but just of different vocalists. So they were much more willing to accept this album without Peter Gabriel than the Yes fans were with accepting Trevor Horn here on vocals without John Anderson, because this is a very different sound, and I don't think, to me, Trevor Horn doesn't sound anything like John Anderson. So, other than they both have high ranges, but other than that, they're not that similar. This album is a much heavier album than most of the previous Yes albums too, and doesn't have that really kind of dominated keyboard soloing stuff that you got with Rick Wakeman and with Patrick Moraz before that. You got with this album, it's very kind of almost new wave-ish in its keyboard sound, you know. Also with this album, you've got some heavier guitar on this than I imagine that I can think of Steve Howe doing prior to that, except for maybe a little bit more on Relayer, but that was more of his soloing stuff. This is just real heavy riffing stuff. This album is much more pastoral, maybe not even as heavy as some of its predecessors, but actually well within the sound range of what they've been done before. It's almost like they took that and moved it over to somebody else singing. That's all they did, really. So there's a lot of similarity between this and Selling England by the Pound. Okay, the members on the band, of course, just talk a little bit about that. So we have on this one, you have basically it's the same classic lineup minus Peter Gabriel. You've got Mike Rutherford on bass, Steve Hackett on guitar, Phil Collins on drums and vocals now, and Tony Banks on keyboards and synthesizers. With Yes, you've got the 2 members from the Buggles have come in. Trevor Horn has taken over the vocals. Jeff Downs has taken over keyboards and synthesizers. And then you have the Steve Howe on guitars, Chris Squire on bass and backing vocals, and Howe is actually on backing vocals too, and Alan White on the drums. So really a bigger change for them than for them, but the vocalists are very different, and the music for Yes is very different, but not so different for Genesis. Outstanding track for me on this one, the outstanding track now is probably going to be Entangled. But there's been an outstanding track just about every year, a different one, right? I think initially it was probably Squonk was probably the big song on this album for me. However, that's just my own opinion at the time. Yes, the outstanding track on this is almost certainly Tempest Fugit. Wasn't, and I don't think initially, I think Into the Lens was, but I think Tempest Fugit has turned out to be the outstanding track. But neither one of these albums is really known for its kind of solo material, like stuff that was going to set it on fire. They're just great prog albums with lots of great prog stuff on them. I rank this in my top 10 albums of all time. If you want to look, you can see it's ranked 7th, I think. 6th or 7th with Song of the Wood. I'm not sure which one is which. And then you've got Drama, which is probably, it's a masterpiece album, so it ranks in my top 50 for sure. Probably in the 30 range, 25 to 30 range. But both excellent albums. Overall sound, this one is a lot heavier than most of Yes's stuff. It's got a much more screechy kind of guitar sound, maybe what you would call like a slide guitar sound. There's more of that on here. Doesn't sound like slide guitar, but it has that distortion part very well down. Heavier, the vocals are a little bit different than we're used to, but overall a pretty strong album. This one here is exceptional. Almost all the songs on here I think are great. It's got a real kind of real Genesee feel to it, and Phil Collins nails the vocals on here. And for the longest time I couldn't picture Peter Gabriel singing with Genesis, but there you go. So those are the two there. Artwork, of course, both are good. I think both are good. You got this one, which I believe is another of Alan Dean's stuff. It's a little different, maybe a little more stark than most of his stuff. And this one is really good, and I don't know the artist here. But it's got a little bit of every song. Like there's a little part that indicates every song on the album, so really good that way as well. And the last part, I think for me both these albums were my first, coincidentally they were my first albums by both bands. Drama came out in 1980 and I got it. It was my first Yes album. Trick of the Tail came out in 76. I got the first album. I got it in the same year as the Yes one in 1980, and it was Trick of the Tail was the album. So very, very good. For me, a very good start, but also with those two vocalists, I didn't have any kind of prejudice because I hadn't come into the band when they had the other vocalists. So for me, it worked out. But I know that there's plenty of people out there that love the original singers. I think the Genesis album has been well received over the years. The Drama album, not so much, but has picked up some pace over the last few years as well. I think people have started to kind of see it as a normal Yes album because so many different people have been in the band, so it's, it kind of fits into that range a little bit better. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. So if you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those are much appreciated. If you got any comments about anything I've said or these two albums or the topic or anything like that, you can put that in the comments section below. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you're reminded when the next episode comes out. And that next episode, this one will come out tomorrow morning. That next episode will come out on Thursday with another topic. So we're halfway through now. Three more topics about these two great bands on these great albums that they've made. So have yourself a great evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.